Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining me today. It's Allan Barry Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show, and I've got a exciting new discovery that is one hole into it, and it's quite a spectacular story for Nuvau Minerals. They just put out a news release the other day, I think it was yesterday,
Yesterday.
on a drill hole update. And what they've hit is a quartz vein in an orogenic gold region on a project that is 1,300 square kilometers that was owned by Glencore, who was mining it for VMS, had no interest in looking at gold, but it happens to be in the Abitibi region, which is one of the most prolific gold regions in the world. And these guys have poked one hole into this discovery and had quite a number of occurrences of visible gold in the drill hole. So I'm really happy to have Peter Van Alphen on. We just talked last week, sort of a general sense of things, but now you got some specific gold to talk about, Peter.
Yeah, Alan, it was like little did we know last week when we were talking. It was, for reference, it was myself and our fairly new chairman of the board, Stephen Bowles. And, at that point, he didn't even know that we would, that we were drilling this hole. We were just, we had this idea that, based on some information that we had got was that, there was this potential in this part of the property. And, as you say, Matagami has been in the hands of Glencore before that, Xstrata before that, all the way back to Noranda.
So base
And
metal companies the whole way.
it's been base metals and they're poor geologists. I think, we've seen a bunch of data where the geologists have always, can we look at this? Can we look at that? No, focus on the business at hand. And that was good, right? And they've been successful there 60 years since that mill came into production and they've been mining 60 million tons. It's probably, I don't know, at current metal prices, I'm guessing 25 to 30 billion dollars worth of revenue that's been extracted from this property. And very little, I would say, if any, of the values actually come from gold. Because it's just not, the recoveries are so low in the concentrate. Some of it goes with the copper con. But, basically, in our modeling, we don't get paid for any gold on this. And typically
Which
the
is
the
kind
VMS.
of crazy, Peter, because that's the Abitibi, man.
Well,
You
that's right. That's right. And I think, and just again, another reference point here is that the over 60 million tons mined, the average gold grade there that, is in my head, like sort of from memory here, the average gold grade in that 60 million tons is zero point 0.4 grams per ton. So that's all in there associated with the massive sulfides.
and
And
that's
so,
in your classic VMS system.
correct,
They're mainly either copper with gold, but the copper is what puts it into a mine,
correct,
or
into the
it's
calculator.
silver and zinc zone in the
Yeah,
VMS, and that's what pushes that side of things. So,
correct.
you usually the precious metals in a VMS system are usually on the lower end.
Yeah, so but then again, as you say, 1,300 square kilometers, importantly, 85 kilometers east to west, roughly. And that sits, we're just on the southern boundary of the Sunday Lake Deformation Zone.
Right.
And so if you then track back on the Sunday Lake Deformation Zone, the next big resource you're going to come to is Fenelon. That's about, I think, 5 million ounces. Then you go further and then you get to the big bull elephant, which is Detour Gold, right? And so Detour Gold is sitting, I don't know, a couple of hundred kilometers just onto the Ontario side of the border from where we are. And they're what, the largest gold mine in Canada.
Yeah.
And so,
One or two.
we
They're between Detour and Malartic. It's pretty close, I think.
yeah. So, okay. Second. I'm
Yes.
okay with that.
Argue over 100,000 ounces here or there.
No, no. And then, then if you look south of them, you've got Casa Baradi. That started what in about the 88, I think it was. There's over 3 million ounces that have been mined there on the Casa Baradi break, and that comes through the southern part of our property. And so we kind of sit there in this region with this, as you said, 1,300 square kilometers that has never had a gold focused program on it. There's been anomalies, there are anomalies, and really our focus initially, and I'll tell you the story in a bit, but our focus initially was really mostly on the northern part of the property.
Right,
And some of that was again a bit of a fortuitous thing that happened is that in 2023 we were doing sonic drilling up in the central western part of the property. And we've got this idea because there's glacier till everywhere, was that what we need to do is map the till, and again to give us an idea of what we can see there in terms of trace elements, and can we use that, quite frankly, as a means of vectoring in on potential VMS deposits, right? That was the reason behind this. There was actually, Gilles Roy, our director of exploration, was involved back in 2012 when he still worked for Glencore at that point. It might have been Extrado, I forget. But he did a pilot project up in the north, sonic drilling, and again that identified some anomalies there that pointed back to what we call Daniel 25. So it's been successful. So we were doing that as part of our work on our earning agreement, which was to look for base metals in the central part, close to where we've got what we call the Quebec complex. And when we got the results, it took a long time actually to get the results from that, but it was in March of 2025, um, the beginning, right? Like the day of the start of PDAC, is that we got the results of some of those holes with the till anomalies from our 2023 drilling program. And lo and behold, there was this huge amount of gold in one of those holes. What we believe, and nobody has disputed this yet, but we believe it's the highest grain count of gold ever found in the Abitibi in a till anomaly, close to the bottom of the hole, pristine particles, over 2,000 grains, a meter separating another 300 grains. Oh, there's a boulder in there that the drill went through. So, between the, 2000 plus 300 grains of gold per 10 kilogram sample. So, that got us really excited that we're very close to a system there. And we're up in the northern part of the property. And so that has been one of the targets that we've been working on. We flew a drone mag survey there just recently, and again, trying to zone in or hone in on where do we go and put the drill to actually test this, because there's no drilling in this area essentially. There's nothing there.
now I want to put this into context for my non-geologist that's watching this. To um, Peter has mentioned a very extremely high count of visible or of gold in the what is basically surface sampling with a sonic drill. Okay. Now, when you get such extreme, and this is extremely high amounts of grains of gold in a sample, usually you get a few grains and you'd be happy. When you start talking about 2,300 with a very high percentage of pristine grains, this is indicating that you're near a what is possibly a high grade gold vein, and because when the glacier moves the goes across a vein, if you will, uh, it will pick up the gold that's at where it crosses, okay, and then it will displace it. And so if there's a lot of rounding, like think of it as gold nuggets that you see in a river system, okay? If there's a lot of rounding, it means that it has been moved a long distance from where it came from. But on the other hand, if it's angular, This is what you call a pristine grain, okay? And if it's angular, that means it has not been moved a long distance from its source. So when you have such a high concentration of gold grains with a high percentage of pristine grains, that is very exciting. It's tremendous. You basically don't see that. It's very rare that you see anything like that, even in the Abitibi. And I think, Peter, there's probably been some major discoveries in the Abitibi when they find high grade, high counts of grains like that.
Well, yeah, you look Casa Baradi, I believe that was found through till anomalies. Bordon gold mine that Porcupine now have in the Timmins camp, that was found. Rainy River was, but I think Bordon was the highest, I believe, in terms of that, and it was either 400 or 700, somewhere in that range of that. That was their highest, the highest number they got. And the only thing I'll add to your description there for your in terms of what this means is that the piece you did also leave out, which is important, is it's very close to the bottom of the hole. And so
So that
as
would be just above the bedrock.
correct, correct. And so the piece with that is that I think the term that they use is that dispersion train, is that you sort of have that shotgun approach of the particles moving up and out as they get further away. This is all still back down close to the bottom of the hole. So that, going back to the story, is that really was that was a kind of a, a point in our
A
in our
light bulb moment.
it was, and it was a case of, okay, hang on, you know, we've always spoken about the gold potential in Matagami. It's fairly obvious. Some of the guys from like Sidex in Quebec will refer to the Matagami property as the hole in the middle of the donut, and that there's gold everywhere, but there's no gold there just simply because it hasn't been looked for. And we've done a lot of arm waving about it. And, we've said, well, there's some anomalies there. There has to be potential, but almost its existence was, we spoke about that more through the absence of looking rather than because we
Finding
didn't find it.
something. Yeah.
And so we get this momentum now from this till anomaly, and so that really got us onto this trajectory. We've been doing since then more serious work in looking at that area and that, as I say, the northern part of the property. So fast forward to, I think it was early June, maybe late May of this year, is we are having a planning meeting. We've done this a few times, where we get all of our geos from the most junior one to the senior ones, the guys wet behind the ears to the old guys with the gray hair. And everybody, we get into a room and that day we spent 8 hours on a Teams call actually, and everybody gets a chance to pitch their favorite targets. All the geos have to come with three. And a guy that we had just hired, I don't think he'd been with us for more than a month. And we had hired him, and Bastien had joined us, and he was, amongst other things, he had been a geologist working on the Matagami property back in about 2013 to 2015. I think it was round about in that period. And so we're having this planning meeting, and we're sitting there, and so even as the new guy, because he had worked there before, he gets a chance to talk about, his favorite targets, because he's got some history there. And he was involved. He was a geologist working, amongst other things, being a beat geologist at the Bracemak McLeod mine, which was in production at the time. And maybe just sort of let's just pause the story there for a second and let's go to 2022. In 2022, when we signed the agreement with Glencore, we heard about a gold vein in the Bracemak McLeod mine. And so it was almost a little bit of an urban legend. We spoke to people there that were working there, senior technical people. Any idea where this thing is? There's
Or
not.
is it even there? Yeah.
Is it even there, right?
Yeah.
It's not kind of by, maybe it was a little bit of a cheeky thing, but when you look at our logo, it's not for no reason that AU is in the end of it. And So, we've got this idea that, or we've been told that there's this gold vein that they crossed that was intersected there somewhere. And we speak to a bunch of people, can't find anything about it. And so it kind of just fades into the background. So fast forward to our planning meeting, and we're sitting there, and Bastien says to us, we're talking about gold targets, and he says, I've got one. And he says, when I was a beat geo, so now everybody's listening, and we brought up the leapfrog model showing the ramp. And he says, over there in the ramp, he says, I mapped a vein and I got permission to sample it, and it carried gold. And he's saying, yeah, it's probably about 8 feet thick, so 2 meters true width. And he said the ramp came around. Now the ramp at that point is in the footwall of what's the Braceback deposit. It's going into the rock package into the tonalite, and the ramp is turning and coming back in to the gabbros. So it's just getting in and getting out. It's it's part of just the ramp making its way. They've had a separate ramp for the Braceback deposit there.
Yeah.
And the ramp came back round and about 45 meters away went back through this vein again. He was told he can't assay it, as I understand it, because we're focused on gold. And
Or
so
no,
all we
you're
had
focused
was,
on base metals. No,
sorry, on base metals.
yeah,
And so all we had was, young Bastian Fraser saying, I think it's there and I think it's there.
yeah.
And, I think it's dipping like that. And so we looked at this, looked at the area, and there's no drilling in this area. Because it's of no interest. There's the odd hole, but nobody drills into the tonalite because it's well accepted. There's no VMS structures in there.
Okay.
And so we put a drill on it, and we applied for our permits, put a drill on it, and we drilled down. And then Friday night, I got a call from Bastien saying, we've intersected a quartz vein, and all we had then was the geos hadn't cut the core yet or anything yet, but there's visible gold in it. And then when we cut the core, there were more particles of visible gold in it. And so there's about 1.5 meters or so of quartz veins and shear zone there. And so yeah, we've sent that for assay, and we'll get the assays here. Should be relatively soon. And yeah, so it's a thing of, urban legend turns to a gold discovery. So, I think the key piece here is that this is now our first piece of evidence that there's an organic gold system. This is not associated with sulfides. This is a outside of
Quartz.
where the sulfides are occurring. It's a late
Well, you know,
intrusive.
I get kind of goosebumps when I hear that, Peter, because it emphasizes a couple things. A lot of the great minds all have this origin story, an interesting origin story that, like for example, you look at Voisey's Bay. They were out there looking. Diamond Fields was looking for diamonds. The guys flying back after prospecting for diamonds see a rusty colored outcropping of rock, and they get their pilot to go down land and let him take some samples. And they get back, they do some assay. Oh, it's got good number. We don't care. We're looking for diamonds. So somehow they convinced old Robert Friedland, hey, we should go back and do some more sampling. And they came back with great results. Then the rest is history. And
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
lot of stories like that in mining in Canada and throughout the world. So these interesting origin stories are quite exciting. But then you also have the element of luck. And you just got very, very lucky to have, well, for that geologist to be underground and pay attention to what he's looking at and seeing a quartz vein and saying, hey, I should sample this. I'm a geologist. This is something I should do. And then fast forward to like a couple months ago, you just happen to hire the guy who kind of can unlock an urban legend that, hey, there might be gold at Braceback. You know, I mean, this
Yeah.
this is how it works sometimes, folks. They have these crazy origin stories and just happen to have luck and Mother Nature's not easy to deal with, and sometimes that's what you need. And you sure, I mean, when to see that much visible gold in a drill core like that, um, it's pretty rare to have that much visible gold in a sort of a discovery hole.
Yeah, so you know what? I'm sure we're gonna have to do some a lot of hard work. This is the first hole of many.
Now you got to roll your sleeves up and get to
Now we're going to
work,
roll the
folks.
sleeves up, but I think just one comment that I wanted to make there is that my background, I'm an operator, right? Ellen, as you know, I come at this from um, I love the operation side. I love the piece around building mines. That's what attracted me actually to Matagami. My experience has been FNX, these type of Lakeshore Gold, tough assets. But if you operate them right, you can be really successful. And as you say, sometimes you just need to be just a little bit lucky with these. And I think that's that's there's a portion of this that is definitely is that,
For
right? And
sure.
that we are still very, very much convinced that we let's not forget we still have this till anomaly, which is second to none right now. And we've got no follow up on
And
that.
that's got to be like what, 10 kilometers away or more?
A little bit further than that. That's probably by road from where Bracemac is probably about 30 kilometers in
Oh, wow.
total. But it's on a completely different. That's sitting up in this what we call the Danielle Belt,
Right.
and this is now sitting down on the south flank, which is where all the old historic mines were. Now, how
Folks,
complete?
as Peter is describing that, it just gives you a sense of how big their project is. Like 1,300 square kilometers, folks. So they're down at the south end, south side of their claims. And, it's like 30 kilometers or more to the north side of their
Yeah.
claims. And east to west, it's about 85 kilometers. This is a
I,
huge
I think
piece of land.
here's a point of reference that you can use. Yes, two. The one is to give you the an idea of the size. This is for if any American listeners,
Okay.
is that if you take Manhattan Island, the
Yes.
whole of Manhattan Island, and
Yeah.
you turn it east-west, you can put at least three of them across the Matagami property.
And
For your
two
Canadian,
this way, right?
and yeah, probably two, maybe, yeah, you're probably close to two that way. If you then your Canadian audiences or anybody in the mining space that knows the Sudbury camp very well,
Yeah.
is that our property is roughly 35 kilometers by 85 kilometers.
Oh,
The Sudbury Basin, the entire Sudbury Basin, is about 60 kilometers by 30 kilometers.
holy
So
moly.
it's bigger than the
Sudbury,
entire Sudbury Basin. No, it's not the Sudbury Basin,
of
but
course.
it does give you a sense in terms of the scale of the land package.
It's
So
massive.
it is
And,
extremely large.
as you're also describing that, Peter, if I had a blank sheet of paper and I could go into the Abitibi and I could do what I wanted there, I didn't have to worry about anybody else. The first places I'd be looking are where you have deep crustal structures. So, folks, what these are cracks in the earth because to have an orogenic gold system, they can start at 10,000 meters below surface. And they need these deep cracks in the earth for those metals bearing fluids to make their way up. So, one of the first things I would do, Peter, is I would be looking for land in between big, deep structures. So, on the north end of your claims, you got one of those deep cracks. And to the south end of your claims, you got one of those deep cracks. So having a project sandwiched in between these two big deep cracks would be one of the things I'd be looking for. Another thing I'd be looking for is I would be looking for secondary faulting. Because in an orogenic gold system, folks, not only do you need these deep cracks, but as you get close to the surface, you want these secondary cracks, okay? Because that's often where you find the deposits. It's not the sort of the first road that the fluids will follow is the deep crack. But then when they get closer to surface, they'll shoot into the secondary cracks. Okay. And I've actually done my Google Earth homework on this project, Peter, and I can see secondary faulting in between those two on your on your 1300 square kilometer project. So, okay, you got the old rocks sitting in between two deep cracks and a bunch of secondary cracks. So if I'm looking for an orogenic gold system, Peter, that's exactly where I'm going to go. And that's exactly the package of property I would put together. And so, what I'm getting at is this is an ideal location to look for orogenic gold systems. It's in the Abitibi. You got the right age of rocks. You got the deep cracks. You got the secondary cracks in the earth. And now, most importantly, you got a quartz vein with a bunch of visible gold in it.
Yep.
You know, this is
Anyway,
This
yeah.
is if you want to check the box, folks, of how to find an orogenic gold system, these are the boxes you check. And the most important box you check is using the truth machine to drill into a quartz vein with a bunch of visible gold in it.
Yeah. And one thing I think is worth throwing in here as well, Alan, is that, we've got this, I think you and I have spoken about this when we were chatting in the past, is, this really puts us on that up, on that the potential, the Lassonde curve, right? On that,
On the left side of the,
on the
you got
left-hand
both
side of
sides.
correct,
You got,
correct. And that you've got that side, which is that exploration potential and, really a blank slate. Like we don't have, this isn't a hole that's drilled right next door to a neighbor's property where they've got gold, right? This is something out on its own. And I can't tell you how big this area is because we just simply don't know yet, right?
right.
In terms of this particular region. And so there's this sort of blank slate that we have in front of us, which I think is really exciting from a value point of
Tremendous.
view. We sit somewhere on that curve, right, in being able to add and unlock value.
Well, as
But
far as a gold exploration project, you're actually right at the very bottom of the left
correct.
side of the Lassonde curve.
And so to get what we know is that getting our way up that curve and doing more work on this big land package is going to take two commodities, time and money.
Yep,
Right? And
yep.
so, we'll continue to do that and we'll continue to explore. But the piece here that I think makes this project really unique is that we've got the base metal side here, where
And this is the right
there's
side of the Lassonde curve, folks.
correct. We've got 10 years plus of resource in front of us, right?
Yep.
We'll be putting out some news in terms of what we've been doing on upgrading that resource, on our discovery of Renaissance, adding that to resource, adding resource at McLeod, Bracemac McLeod mine. We've got we've got within our agreement with Glencore, we've got the option to acquire the mill. So $300-400 million worth of infrastructure that we can take over from Glencore. And so what that allows us to do in mining terms, near term, in the next 3 years, three, maybe 4 years, is we have the potential of getting the property actually generating revenue off the back of resource of over 10 years already, that's already sitting on the property. And that's copper zinc, which, in today's world, gold is sexy, but copper zinc can start paying the bills, right? And so now all of a
Mucho
sudden,
dinero.
correct. And so now all of a sudden you sit in a scenario where you've got the history of this property and almost, without getting sort of waxing too too poetic here, but the backbone of that property it's been driven, it's been the community being built around copper and zinc.
Yeah,
And we can continue to drive that. And as the mayor of Matagami likes to say, is that exploration is the oxygen. And we with the gold exploration and more VMS type of exploration,
absolutely.
we can just continue to put more and more oxygen into this camp and into the region. The Quebec government is, we
Before
know
you
that.
get into that, that's a whole nother
Yeah, yeah.
subject. I want to explain to my audience. So you can go and do a Google search for the Lassonde curve. But what it basically happens is it's like a stock chart, okay? So you start out as a flatlining company, as a junior explorer, you make a discovery. Then it goes up the left side of the Lassonde curve depending on how great it is, you know, you can have $1 billion plus valuation, or sometimes they get bought out at $2 billion when you go up the left side of the Lassonde curve. Then it comes down the left side of the Lassonde curve as you're advancing the project through economic evaluations and so forth. Then it goes through what you call the valley of death or the orphan phase or the development discount window, where it goes back into a flatlining stock again. All right. And then you bring it back into production. You bring something into production and it goes up the right side of the Lassonde curve. All right. So when we're talking about this, Peter, I think there's another really exciting part. So I want to talk about the left side of the song curve, but I also want to talk about the development discount window and the right side of the Lassonde curve. There's something in here I call it the sweet spot before you go up the right side of the Lassonde curve. All right. And this can be very profitable for investors. When they spot a company, for example, Silvercrest was one of my picks prior to bringing it into production, and Orla was one of my picks prior to bringing it into production. And they both recently, Silvercrest got bought out for 2 billion or something like that. And Orla is a 2 billion plus company because they brought new projects into production. Now, how you get into that sweet spot is really important because the sweet spot is at the end of when you've done all your economic evaluations, you've done all your permitting, you've done all the work that you need to put it back something into production. In your case, you're through the development discount window and at the sweet spot with a mine already built, a mill already built. You don't need to spend 300 million. That's the sweet spot, folks, when you're actually now able to build it and bring it into production. So this on its own, take away all the exploration potential. This on its own is exciting.
But yeah, I agree. And again, as I said earlier, I'm in operations. That's my passion.
Yeah.
But I think the piece of this project that I think we've always believed is so unique is that, as you say, we have this opportunity in the near term to get this project into production. And we do have a lot of exploration potential. And so if we're funding that through continuously raising money in the markets, that obviously causes dilution and that impacts on a shareholder that's coming in and looking at us now. But you coming to Nuvau now, we get this thing into production. What we're doing is creating the future value of that exploration. A lot of that is actually going to go back into the shareholders that are coming in this early stage, right? Because we're not going to be constantly adding more dilution to this because, if we can fund this now from from the operations, then this big exploration story becomes, I think, it's a completely
Organic.
different. Yeah, yeah. And so, we were talking actually a few months ago. We were doing some marketing in Calgary, and we were talking to a bunch of guys that were involved in the oil and gas. And it was just interesting listening to them because they kind of got that piece really quickly because it was, as one guy said to me, he said, yeah, you drill a well, and I'm not an expert on that, but you drill a well and it's making oil, you tap it and you start selling your barrels of oil from it and you keep drilling, right? You're using the money from that to keep on drilling. And so this is a little bit along those lines, is that we can utilize this thing that we have to protect, ours included, right? Is that, Bordon management, we've got 23% ownership in here, which we did not get. There's no free share in there. Everybody acquired those shares in the market with everybody else. And, yeah, so, this creates future value for shareholders that are coming in and supporting us now as we continue to build this thing.
Well,
So,
here's another I love the Lassonde curve. I think every investor in this sector should pay a lot of attention to the Lassonde curve and where a company is on the Lassonde curve. But here's an interesting question for you, Peter. You might get to a very unique situation where you have to ask yourself, which is going to lead to more valuation, accretive valuation, running up the right side of the Lassonde curve or the left side. And the reason that I say that is um, uh, to have a project that finds, if you find well, I think you already have, but if you get good results from a brand new orogenic gold discovery in the Abitibi, that left side of the curve could overwhelm the right side of the Lassonde curve.
100%,
You understand where
100%,
I'm going with this?
100%.
This is
Yeah.
amazing to find, a brand new, or I mean, folks, this
But
is, as an exploration guy who spent 32 years in exploration, to get what they've got in one hole, their very first hole on a 1,300 square kilometer project in the Abitibi. Oh my God, these are what
you,
dreams are
you,
made of, Peter, as an exploration guy.
so here's just going back to the Lassonde curve, and I don't know how to. If I knew how to show this, I would have actually done this a long time ago. Is to your question of do you get more value out of the left or do you get more value out of the right of that curve, is what if you actually can change the curve in our particular situation and that you kind of superimposing them on top of each other, right?
Right?
It's
Or
two
at
waves.
least parallel.
But
You
they're
could,
coming because, again, it is a large land package and, we do have, I spoke earlier about this planning meeting, this exploration meeting we were having, is that, you know, we, we also have some smart guys that have been looking at a couple of other ideas in terms of outside of gold, copper, and zinc on this property, right? And we think that there's a good argument for other commodities as well being here. Um, we'll leave that for now, but we are slowly chipping away at these. I'll throw one in there is that we think we might have some of the highest grade, and this is around the VMS deposits, the highest grade tellurium of any known areas on the planet, right?
oh,
Tellurium is trading at about 100. I think the last time I looked was probably about $100,000 a ton. So 10 times the price of copper. Next to the Perseverance mine, I believe there's a narrow vein there of tellurium of 4 grams, 4%, right? So 4% copper would be great, but imagine 10 times that. So there's this sort of buffet of minerals on this property, and I think that's why I think as far as, yes, there'll be value driven, we believe, from gold exploration. And, if we do our work well, we do it diligently, we work hard, we expect that the market will reward us for it, for that. But,
Maybe not like anything else. I mean, I keep
it,
going back to having a brand new orogenic gold
yeah,
discovery in the Abitibi off of the first hole. I mean, that's what gets, as we say, visions of sugar plums dancing in your head for investors in mining stocks. I mean, you really can't get anything better than that, Peter.
yeah,
If you want to make a new discovery, go make a discovery of high-grade gold in an orogenic gold system in the Abitibi.
in the first hole.
It was your first hole. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I, again, I think the future here is, and I'm shamelessly quoting something that I had the privilege of working for a number of years with Tony McCooch of Discovery Silver now. And this was at Lakeshore Gold. And Tony once said, when asked about, was the company for sale, something along those lines. And he says, we've come here to mine it, right? We've come here to build mines. And I think there's a piece of this that, yes, the exploration, yes, the opportunity here is, enhancing the community in Matagami. This is a community that we don't need to ask for social license here. We are expected to bring this mine back into production.
wow.
It's not something that we are facing opposition from a community that they don't want it.
Well,
The
even when
converse
you
of that is,
say that, Peter, like here again, it's giving me goosebumps, and I don't get those very often. I've been doing this for 32 years. Even if you're talking about mining, okay, to make a discovery 25 meters from underground working
yeah.
of gold, I mean, that's fast track to production. If you find if it's a deposit there that can be mined, you're already underground there, Peter.
Well, can I make it actually better? Can I give you more
Oh,
goosebumps?
okay, go ahead.
You're underground. You're not 25 meters away. It's actually intersected by the ramp,
All right, yes, right.
and it is in a mine that is permitted. It's in a mine that the key infrastructure is all in place. I can show you pictures right now of a beautiful shop on surface. I can show you pictures of the ventilation system, the tower, the compressors, everything there. The trailers, the office trailers were removed. They were temporary. They actually went down to the Horn. But no, it's a permitted built mine, right?
Wow.
It's not it, and it's built by Glencore. It's well built. It's beautiful infrastructure. And so this is what's there. So, that piece of this is taken away in terms of, from discover, how long does it take to go from a discovery hole to an operating mine? It can be
10,
a long,
15
long,
years.
long time.
Yeah,
There's a lot of pieces here that, this creates a whole different scenario for us. And
absolutely.
so,
Wow.
we're on the cusp of something here. And, as you say, it's time to roll up sleeves,
And get to work.
and we're going to be working and continuing to work. We've got an incredible group of guys that we've assembled both directly and indirectly. We work with a group, Laurentia Exploration. They're an amazing group of young guys there that started this company a number of years ago. They're all ex-Glencore. We've got, internally, we're slowly building our team. And again, we've got, yeah, I really, I can't say that, we've got a great group of guys. It's an absolute privilege to be working alongside these guys. So, yeah, I think we're on the cusp of something exciting. Hard work, but hard work has never killed anybody.
I do
So,
too, and as you can tell by the way I talk about this project and what you've drilled into, I think my enthusiasm is pretty self-evident. So going forward, Peter, you got assay results coming on
yeah,
this hole that you've sent in. and then you're getting right back into drilling.
Yeah, we're looking at now. We've got an idea where the structure is in the ramp. We don't have anything there that will, we know roughly, right? And so, the first step here is to start trying to understand the dip and the strike of this. You know, yeah, there's not in this rock package in the tonalite, there's not a lot of drilling because, Glencore wouldn't have drilled into it, Naranda, back to Naranda. Nobody would have drilled really into it. It was you were going in the other direction
Towards the
and
VMS to mine
towards the
that.
VMS.
Yeah.
So yeah, so any drilling is actually, if just thinking about it now, it's probably almost drilling parallel to this vein, right? And so you're either going to hit it or you're not going to hit it. You're not. The orientation now is different. I need to check that, but that's I think in my head how the geometry is working there. So yeah, so we're looking now to strategically place another couple of holes to test the structure, to understand the dip and strike. And, again, we don't have a lot to go on in terms of his. It's funny because we drill in, if you look at a heat map, I've actually got one which shows all the drill holes drilled on all 1,300 square kilometers. Is that when you look at the area where this discovery is it's so full of drill holes that you can't see anything else,
Right.
except they're just not drilling there, right? They're just not drilling there. And so,
Because all of those holes were drilling off the VMS that
yeah, they would
over
correct.
here, not
They,
50 meters over there.
correct. And so, they've been drilling there. We're in an area where there have been together with the north flank, there've been 12 mines, 12 individual mines,
Hmm.
right? It's extensively drilled, although there's still gaps in it. And that's a whole different story, is that there's still some gaps in there that we think that there's the potential for more VMS structures still to be found there. And so that's again another a whole part
So
of
we're
the
keeping it
story.
on gold here, but I could, to tell you the truth, folks, when I'm talking about VMS clusters, and I can get just as excited about the VMS potential of this project. But right now, when I see that much visible gold in a quartz vein on a discovery hole, it's like my attention span gets very, very focused. It's in the Abitibi, folks. It's a huge land package.
Yeah, so that's going to be our focus. So as you're asking there about next steps, is we'll look at carefully now stepping out and start drilling, understand this better, and then basically keep expanding this. And at the same time, we still doing work on the till anomaly to
The
some of
north,
those areas are a little bit wet.
yeah.
So we need to wait for late in the year when at the end of summer when things have had a chance to dry out a bit. um, but certainly in the winter, there's some of those targets. There's at least another couple of areas there that, we've got some
Well, I'm
real,
tremendously excited about that northern area with all those grains of gold because, again, I've done my homework. And in these orogenic gold systems, it's all about structure, 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 structure. And I can see where the east to west structure is and the cross-cutting secondary structures. I don't know where you took that sample, but I can guess that you will find within 50 to 300 meters across uh, a cross-cutting secondary structure to that deep fault very close to where you took the sample. How's that for a prediction, Peter?
I'll let you know.
I bet you I'm not very far off in my guess.
We'll be definitely coming back to that area in the, yeah, as I say, it's that area is quite swampy.
Yeah.
But there's a road that goes through that. So anyway, we're looking
That's
at
wintertime drilling. You wait till the ground gets hard. So this is going to keep you busy until winter with all the other stuff you're doing.
winter of 2050, my friend.
What's that?
We'll be of 2050.
Oh,
We'll be busy. I'll be old and retired, and we'll
there you
still be
go.
adding to this. No, so yeah, Matagami has typically been a winter drilling area. There's a lot of it's a lot of swampy areas, you know, and that's we're slowly going to work on that.
But you
You
don't
know.
really have that issue at Brace Mac McLeod.
Not a Grace Bank. No, no, that is
Awesome.
some of there's we've got there's I would say very little there. We've got there's the river there. I don't think it impacts on this. But yeah, we at this point no, we don't I don't anticipate that the this Braceback drilling will be impacted at all by winter conditions.
Awesome.
Um,
And that's wonderful to hear. I mean, folks, if you're from Quebec, the Matagami project, the Matagami mine, and the Brace Mac McLeod mine are very well known. And the town of is right there. And so, it was built for mining. So as Peter alluded to earlier, you don't, like you said, you don't need to get what do you say it again, Peter? I love that. Say what you said.
we yeah we don't need to go and ask for social license. It's expected of us to get the mine going, get the mine back in production. So, we've got incredible support from local community. I can't go into a restaurant, the little restaurant there without, the lady that owns that, she asked me the last time I think I was there is that, her husband used to work at the mine. He's working out of town now. When are they going to be able to come back? Right. That's what we've got there. We've got it in the management of the town. The mayor, the general manager there are huge supporters. The local member of parliament, all the way through to, people within the Ministry of Natural Resources, the Minister of Natural Resources. Like we've got a lot of support for what we are doing. And so, they all see the benefits for this in Quebec. And so, and it's a good place to be operating. We getting support from some of the big Quebec funds. We continue to see that increase. I think we've got some other opportunities of working with some of these groups going forward on this. So yeah, it's just a good place to be working. Like it sounds like should be paid by the Quebec government for doing promotion for them, but it really is, right?
Well,
It is a place that's open for business.
Quebec's a great jurisdiction. I think all of Canada should follow the lead of Quebec when it becomes called in terms of being pro mining. It creates a lot of great jobs. You got a town there that's just hungry it knows mining. It was built for mining. They want mining. They
Yeah.
want to bring their husbands back to Matagami so that they can live there and work. Just go on the bus and you'll be at the property. You'll be at the
Yeah.
head frame or
Yeah, and
the
I think in
portal.
terms of and not this is not a necessarily a reflection of other regions, but I think just specifically to the last thing I'll say in Quebec is that in terms of the government people is that even when there's difficult questions to be asked and answered, is that they will answer their emails, they will answer the phone, they will engage with us and we don't sit around waiting, right? You know, if we reach out, we get a response from them,
Well, it
which
sounds
what
like
we
you're,
expect, right?
yeah, it sounds like not only the mining government people and the locals, I bet you they're going to get excited about this new gold discovery over there
I
by
think so. Yeah.
Matagami.
Anyway, maybe this camp, Matagami has been. You see, now I'm saying it like you. Matagami
Oh,
has
sorry.
been has been known as a base metal. It's fairly well known. Maybe one day, in 50 years' time, we'll be saying, oh yeah, one day, back in the day, they used to mine copper and zinc here, but
Yeah, now it's a gold.
now it's a gold cap. Who knows? I think that's a forward-looking statement.
That was 50 years or 25 years forward. Well, that's great, Peter. Thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you for giving my audience a rundown of what you're doing and what you just hit. And we'll be anxiously awaiting, as I'm sure you will be, the assay results and most importantly, additional drilling. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't, a lot of times companies drill into something and they want to wait until they see the assay results based on what you've already hit. Just hitting a quartz vein with that much visible gold, you don't even really need to wait for the assay results. Just keep drilling it. That's the bottom line.
We were excited about it. So yes, we'll be back. I'll give you a call there as soon as we put out the as soon as we've got the results, we put them out. But yeah,
Yeah,
we'll be talking more in the foreseeable future, Alan.
I'm looking forward to it, Peter. Let me close off. And there you go, folks. As always, do your homework, speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions. And a great place to, if you're interested in this news of this discovery that just went out yesterday, go to their website, look at the news release, look at the pictures, the images of the size of the project, the deep structures that I'm talking about. You don't need to be a geologist, folks. These are basically geologists can complicate everything and make it really. The bottom line is these are cracks in the earth. The fluids that carry the gold, they need a path of least resistance to make their way up towards the surface. This is the age of the rocks. I could talk about Archean rocks and all this. It doesn't matter. It's the Abitibi. The rocks are right. The ages are right. But most importantly, look at that drill core. They've hit orogenic gold, an orogenic system with visible gold in their very first hole. I don't need to say any more. Do your own homework. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.